Hello iChurchers, it's Dan Morell here back with another tutorial on navigating your way around editing your iChurch site. Today we are looking at our calendar. Now you might not have a use for a calendar, you might not use a calendar on your iChurch website, but the option is there if you want to. We install a calendar plugin as standard on your iChurch website. If you don't know what a plugin is, then please see one of the previous tutorials that talks about plugins. And we install a plugin that's called Spiffy Calendar. Please don't ask me why it's called that. I have absolutely no idea. But you can see it at the top here, and it will also be down on the left-hand side. Now we install this one as standard for a couple of perks really, because if you've if you've watched the plugin video, you will see that there are a plethora of plugins available, and there really are, so many that will all do the same job or a similar job. So Spiffy Calendar just has one particular perk actually that puts it above one of the other calendar plugins that's called the Events Calendar. And that's repeating events, repetitive events. So obviously if you're creating an event for your church service or for something that happens on a regular basis, then you don't want to have to be creating a new event every single time. You want to be able to set that to repeat, just as you would, in a Google Calendar or something similar. So that's what puts Spiffy Calendar above the events calendar. But there might be other plugins, other events calendar plugins that you might find that are better. That is absolutely fine. This is just what we install as standard. As I said at the beginning, you may not use a calendar at all. If not, then please feel free to stop this video. But if you do want to find out more about it, then watch on. So we have our Spiffy Calendar plugin. And the first thing we're going to look at doing is creating an event, nice and simple. So we hover over Spiffy Calendar, or we can just click on it, and we can go straight to add events. You see, it's a similar sort of setup to what we'd see with our posts and pages. We've got the kind of list of them in terms of managing them, and then we've got the option to add them. So let's add one. So again, it's all fairly self-explanatory. We can simply put in our title, description, locations, all those kinds of things. And you can categorize them as well, similar to categorizing posts. You'll see the categories button is just down here. I haven't created any categories on this tutorial site, but if you wanted to, you could maybe categorize them for between church services, children and youth things, Bible studies, all sorts of things. So you've got options there for categories, and you can display calendars depending on which category you want them to display, and we'll go through that a little later on. So perhaps on your children's and youth page, you might want to only show people what's on for children and young people, of course. So you can create a link as well, and link people to an external website if there were tickets to buy or something like that. So you've got plenty of options. You've got a start date and an end date, and a start time and an end time, nice and simple. And then this is the real big seller that puts it above the events calendar, the recurring events. So what interval would you like? Obviously weekly, monthly, yearly, custom days, and how many times do you want it to repeat? And just reading the note there that if you enter 0, it means it'll just carry on forever. And then we don't really need to concern ourselves much with these hide events bits. And then we want to put in an image if we want, and then remembering to click save at the end. Once our events have been created, we can manage them in the Manage Events button, and the list will pop up here in a nice and easy to display format. Now, of course, at the moment, we've just created events, but we've actually got nowhere to put them yet. So we need to create our calendar and put it somewhere. And there are several options you've got really, and we're going to add our calendar to a page. I'm going to create a page, just a dummy page, just to demonstrate. And the icon, you may be wondering where on earth do we put that? Where on earth do we do it? And we're looking for the Spiffy Calendar icon, which is this one here. And you'll see it's calling itself Spiffy Calendar Shortcode. And that's because, again, in a previous tutorial, we did talk about shortcode. So if you're wanting, basically, it adds in an extra little thing. It's quite difficult to describe other than demonstrating what it does. So we're adding in some shortcode here. So we click on that, and you'll see we've got several options. We've got full calendar, mini calendar. So both of these will display a month view. We've got a weekly calendar, so perhaps if you're running a community center or something like that, or you generally just have quite a lot on, it might be helpful to have a weekly calendar instead. You've also got today's events and upcoming events, so that both of the latter will kind of display as a sort of list instead. But if you're wanting your stereotypical calendar, then you want either the full or the mini calendar. I'm going to go with a full calendar. And you'll see, as I mentioned before, this is where we would choose if we wanted to only display a particular type of event, a particular category, or categories. We can control and click to select multiple categories. So we'd then click Insert, and you see all that appears is just this little bit of shortcode, as we said. So it won't display the actual calendar on the back end, but of course it will display it in the front end, and we'll show you that now by clicking Preview. So you see our calendar has come up, and this is what the the full calendar looks like. Nice and easy. You've got options here to skip to different months and different years. Oops, just click on that by accident. And our events would display whenever they were occurring. If we wanted the mini calendar, I'm just going to show you what that looks like now, nice and quickly. You see, as it would suggest, simply a mini calendar. The upcoming events I find to be quite a useful one, as it's a good way of displaying things that are coming up in the next couple of months. I'm not going to put that in because there won't actually be any upcoming events to display because I haven't created any, but that's a good list and a good overview of upcoming events. So that, in short, is how we do our calendar. There are a couple of options that I'll point out to you that are in the Spiffy calendar options. So by hovering over it and clicking options, we can show a few different bits and bobs. There aren't really a huge amount of options that you need to concern yourself with most of the time, and of course most of them are your own personal preference. Displaying week numbers in the full size calendar, all those kinds of things are completely up to you. But the one thing I would point out for you is the upcoming events display. And because if you've only got a few events or a few major events happening over the course of the year, then you need to make sure that they are actually displayed. Because you'll see at the moment it says display upcoming events for 7 days into the future. Now, arguably, that's not very far ahead into the future. So we'd probably need to change that if we wanted to show all the events coming up in the next year. Bearing in mind, if you're using your calendar to put in your weekly service, then it's probably not worth displaying upcoming events for the whole year because it will just list all 52 of your Sunday services. But if we would simply change the number of days to suit, and then remembering to scroll all the way to the bottom and clicking Save. There are a few other options, as you can choose colors and enabling categories and all those kinds of things. But I would encourage you just to have a browse around, have a look around, and see what works for you. There are other options here. These are all premium add-ons, so you would need to pay more for this. You are perfectly entitled and well within your rights to do that. Of course, the cost would be borne by the church and not by iChurch. But if you are wanting to explore any kind of premium options, not just for Spiffy Calendar, but for any other plugins, because although lots of plugins are free, they often withhold some of the premium features. But if you are looking at getting any premium features, just because it costs doesn't mean it's a bad thing or a rip-off or anything. We would encourage you to not rule it out if you think it's something that's going to be useful. But please do, if you'd like to, get in touch with the iChurch team first, and we'll be happy to help, happy to advise. Thanks very much for listening. This is the end of the tutorial. Don't forget to get in touch if you've got any questions or comments or issues. iChurch@urc.org.uk. See you all very soon.